Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I am your host, Brett Gilliland, and today I've got Amy Parvaneh with me. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Brett,
Awesome.
for having me.
Well, it's good to have you. I forgot to ask you, where are you calling in from? What part of the country?
Orange County, California.
Orange County. Beautiful. It's an awesome area. We were out in, my wife and 4 kids, we were in L.A., Santa Monica area, which I know is not Orange County, but out there in April, so it was a lot of fun. It's a cheap place to live, it looks like.
Oh, very cheap, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, goodness gracious. I mean, this place is crazy.
Yeah.
With 4 kids and my wife and I, it's like you couldn't do anything for under a couple $100 for like lunch. It was nuts.
Yeah. It's not New York though. At New York, I bought one latte for $10. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before.
Yeah, it was nuts. The first night we got there, we got to our hotel and I ordered a glass of wine for my wife and I got an old fashioned. Been traveling, and the guy comes back. He's like, "That'll be $57." I'm like, "Oh, all right. Welcome to California." So, well, anyway, we could chat about that all day, but you are the founder and CEO of Select Advisors Institute. You are big in the RIA space, which is what Visionary Wealth Advisors. We're a registered investment advisor, and you do outside CMO work, so chief marketing officer type work, and I know branding and sales, helping firms across the country, and referralytics is another thing that you all do and help. And so we'll talk about that throughout the podcast. But if you can, maybe just give us a little background, Amy, and what's made you the woman you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I started off my own career in finance and investment banking at Citigroup. I actually started my career on the same week as 9/11. So talk about your upbringing in your career, which the two towers crumble right in front of me. So that was a very challenging, obviously, view to have as starting off your career. But that was also the beginning of me falling in love with the financial industry. I've first and foremost always called myself a lover of the industry of investments, finance. But while I was in investment banking, I found out I don't really love talking about corporate banking and M&A and mergers, P&L statements as much as I like working with specific individuals around their wealth and around their financial needs. So I went to business school at Duke University, and I was recruited by Goldman Sachs. Went through about 25 rounds of interviews with them, did my internship there, and got a job in their private wealth management division in New York, where their minimum account size was about $10 million. Wow. And this is when I was 26 years old. Knew no one that even had $1 million, let alone that level of wealth. But one thing I did know was that I needed to succeed in that career because it was just such an amazing opportunity for me. I was willing to do cup of noodles mindset and just hustle because I felt like it was kind of like, I felt like I didn't belong there, frankly, because I was like Harvard, Yale. It grew up with a lot of wealth, and I was like, well, I don't have any of that. So that really was a great thing for me because it almost made me want to outshine everyone else. And so I was there at Goldman for about 5.5 years there. While I was there, I broke a lot of records as far as, how fast I brought in clients, the type of clients I got in front of. And I just fell in love with the finding of the wealthy people, like the sourcing it, finding who's just made wealth. How do I get in front of them? What do I say to them? And they told me, this is what you're supposed to say. This is the script. And I was like, if I say that within a year, I'm going to get laid off. That's not really going to work for me. So I really also embraced honing in on your own language, what you could feel really comfortable saying within the purview of a larger organization. So I really enjoyed that. And I, all along while I was at Goldman, I was like, I want to be a business owner, even though I know I'm like owning a book here. I don't feel like I will ever have that level of, zero ceiling that a business owner has, where it's like, if I work hard, I literally will, it's like 1 for 1. And so I left to start my own business, just found that I was expecting my first baby. And so as you know, that's horrible timing. Went to join another large established company that was PIMCO. And at PIMCO, it opened up my eyes to the entire world of RIAs. I went from a wirehouse world to RIAs. At PIMCO, my job was to pretty much sell to RIAs, be a consultant to them around PIMCO strategies. But
Sure.
knowing me, I wasn't there passionate about talking about fixed income as much as I was about like, what is this? Where am I? Like, how is this three-man shop managing $500 million? It seemed crazy to me that they would be wearing so many different hats. So in 2014, even though I was expected, like I had my second child, I was like, this is it. I'm starting my business. Moved from New York to California. Even PIMCO, I was in the New York office. And I basically started Select Advisors Institute. And my first take on, every business has different chapters. My first take on it was just to go help RIAs sell, teaching them how
Okay.
to go prospect. And then I would say, okay, when you go to this meeting, like, over the next 2 weeks, do this, this, and this. So I would be their coach. And they would come back and not have done a lot of those things. So I realized pretty early on, I needed to actually do the work for them too, do the marketing work, take that on. So, long story short, since 2014, I've basically built the infrastructure needed to be a replacement for an entire marketing division that a PIMCO or a Goldman or a Vanguard has, like, all the
Yeah.
design, all that those people, a 1 man or 5 man or 20 man shop can't typically focus on those or bring those in house. So we do a lot of that as an
Yeah.
outsource, and I
With a
love
niche
it.
in the financial services market only, right? That's all you work with, the financial advisors.
Absolutely. 90% of
Yeah.
our clients are RIAs, 10% in the wirehouse world. We do coaching for them, but yeah, only financial advisors.
Yeah. So what we know that from a lens of what you work with and how you do that, but there's obviously more people than just financial advisors and listen to this. There are a lot of financial advisors that listen, so let's have that discussion today really around kind of the way I would look at it is how do you promote creativity, right? I think a lot of people, whether you're an attorney listening to this or a financial advisor, accountant, whatever it may be, we want to be creative, right? We have creative minds, but we may not have the team to do it. And let's say they haven't met you yet, they haven't hired you in your firm. How do you promote creativity in your world, and time to promote creativity?
Yeah, that's part of the reason I actually stopped being a financial advisor myself, is because I feel like my right brain, the creative side, is a lot more powerful than my left brain.
Yep.
So I think the first thing is everyone should admit to themselves, which side am I on? Am I more the creative, or am I more the analytical, the numbers person? And where people get into trouble is where they are the numbers person. They're very good at the money management and the actual leadership skills, but they want to somehow also do the creative side, right? They want to like get onto social media, for example, but social media isn't all about like uploading your latest Q3 reports and quarter,
Right.
your latest analysis on what's going on in the markets and having a line out the door. It requires creativity, being raw, being human. And so if you're able to figure out that you're not a creative and outsource that to someone who will be creative for you and not get in the way within the compliance boundaries, I think that's the most important. Is marketing does require a lot of creativity and thinking outside the box, and financial folks a lot of times they have to think inside the box. So I think then you have a really good equation.
Yep. What are you seeing most businesses are doing to fail in social media, and what are they doing to succeed in social media?
The only thing I've seen that works on social media has been literally branding the human within the elements of a firm, as well as really providing value that could be shareable. You look at LinkedIn, some of the things that are like 10,000 likes and 7,000 reshares. They're really going, out of their way to create things that are really giving it away, right? Giving away a lot of content, and I want to share them. Other people want to share them, or you talk about you as a human being. Kind of like you said, you saw my post about me revealing my actual name or talking about my vulnerabilities. The more vulnerable you could become, the more people could feel close to you without having met you yet. So those are the only ways that I've seen really work on social
Yeah.
media. The folks that are not, unfortunately, it's they they know it too. They're not like they're not blind to it, but they're not willing to take that risk. And I call it a risk because it is a risk. You're really putting yourself
Sure.
out there. They are not willing to even have like a little typo or a little like misspelling. But those are the little things that actually make you human, and they make it look like you're a human being too. And
Yeah.
those folks, you're just not going to get the views or anything out of this.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that. So I 100% believe in that as well. And the transparency, the vulnerability that we have to have, I think, as leaders, as advisors when we're working with our clients, but also on that social media front. I've been very open with my struggles with anxiety throughout my life, and have produced countless videos on how I've overcome it, how important it is to me, the meditation, the journaling, all these different things that I've done. And I notice in my research for you struggle with that as well. Right. And I think so immediately when I read that, I'm like, okay, there's a connection right there. Right. We both have shared, even though you don't know that about me, I know that about you, is there's that immediate connection there that allows for us to connect on a deeper level that maybe I wouldn't know if you just put out what happened in, Q2 of the stock market. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm just validating. So talk about that. You shared that. You have intense anxiety. You shared. I've had it as well. Still have it. How do you overcome that? And how have you made that your friend?
Yeah, and I think you're talking about my latest post that I wrote recently. That I think our whole society is so like, especially the younger generation, they're so worried about anxiety. They think anxiety is like the biggest culprit that could, disable them, and they run from
Yeah.
a lot of anxiety. Like, the whole term anxiety. A panic attack, or I had an anxiety attack,
Yeah.
right? And I found that I used to, run away from it or let it weaken me, but now as you age, you learn coping mechanisms, and it's not even a coping mechanism. I actually embrace it. It's like stage fright. Someone once told me, if you don't have stage fright, you're not going to do well on
Yep.
stage. So I embrace it because I think that level of anxiety is just fear inside you to keep going and do better. And it's been the basically the fuel for me to embrace it and be like, what am I worried about? I'm worried about not getting clients. Well, let me go get more clients right now.
Right.
And it's helped me. And and I think just being able to like I exercise a lot. I'm really into fitness. And I like to do those alone. I like to run alone. That allows me to like just meditate, think. I don't want to turn that into another competition. People are like, will you run marathons? I'm like, no, I don't need any more competition in my
No.
life. As a business owner, we're competing all day long. So,
Yeah.
but that's been really helpful to me. And, just like living I guess, reigniting that anxiety into a good thing has been really
Yeah.
great. My
I've
career.
I've found I've found too, for me, it's if I talk trash to it, like if I'm getting anxious about something, it's like, all right, man, like I know what you're doing here.
Wow.
Yeah, I've seen this movie before. I know the end. I'm gonna be fine. Like, I kind of talk to it, and then I immediately try to redirect my mind into something positive and something I'm excited for. Like, even if it's travel anxiety, getting on a plane and traveling and doing all that stuff, I've found in the last few years that if I embrace it, yes, it's there. I see it. I feel you. I hear you. You're on my left shoulder here talking to me. But now, like, kind of flick that thing off and come over here and talk to the right shoulder and try to give that one power. And I've also read that the brain doesn't know the difference between excitement and anxiousness. Right? The wavelengths are the same between the two things. If you actually put it under, whatever they put it under, some imaging center, the brain is the same for excitement as it is for anxiety. And so
Oh,
now it's trying
wow.
to trick your body into understanding, hey, maybe it's not as anxious it is as I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited about getting to go do this. So when you hear me say that, what comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I mean that I think is critical. Like well, I know it sounds weird, but sometimes I tell myself, if I was to have a glass of wine right now, this problem still exists, right? It's
Right,
all
right.
mental, right? And that's actually another thing is like reducing. I feel like our society is like fueled with drugs, alcohol. We're trying
Yeah,
to let this go, but why not face it and see like, can I turn this into a positive thing? Can I turn this like anxious? So I like, I want to I want to bottle up my energy and be able to use it in a positive way.
Yeah. So what have you had in your career that maybe has held you back? And maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's something different. But do you have anything that's really kind of held you back for a little bit, but then you broke through it and your comfort zone got a lot bigger?
Yeah. That's a great question. So my comfort zone, yeah, I always like was worried about, not being good enough, because a lot of times you look at businesses and they're either funded by someone else, or
Right.
they are, they've got all the right recipes, and I always feel like I don't like to promote myself for not for no, nothing, right? Or I'm not in an old boys club to be networking and things like that. So I've found, believe it or not, Brett, that the number one thing that's helped me, and it helped me at Goldman, it helped me at Pimco, and it's obviously helped me with what I do, is like the good old fashioned, be the one that actually puts in the work, right? Puts in the real work. So I'm the one, like on Saturdays, like my kids are, I had classes and things, like I'm working every single Saturday,
Yeah.
like from 8 till 3 p.m. I'm working, I'm logging that time in. And when that pays off every single time, that reduces my worry that I'm going to be behind, because I know I'm out working, anyone that I'm worried about. So
Right.
I think that that ability to rely on your work ethic and your ability to think outside the box. And the other thing is my brain. I feel like my brain always gives me great ideas. And I know that sounds like crazy, but like even during
No.
COVID, I was like, holy crap, who's gonna want to coach right now, during this crisis? And like ideas came to, wait, what about this? And like I feel like that's always been really there for me, that survivalist like mindset that you need as a business owner to pivot and not go down that same. So my, whether you call it my brain or a calling, like I keep getting like ideas that I rely on, because that's always helped me, think about new ways
Yeah.
to improve my career.
So how do you work with those ideas? So I'm a idea person as well. There's constantly things rolling through my mind. But what do you do with those ideas? Do you have a spot in your phone? Do you have a journal? Like what do you do with them? And then do you test them out to make sure they'd work before you kind of go live with any of those?
Yeah, well, when you're really good at marketing, that's actually a problem, because you could literally
Yeah, it
make
doesn't turn
anything.
off. Yeah.
Well, no, you could also make any business kind of work out. Like I always think my biggest problem right now is I don't have time, because I have like five other business ideas that like,
Yeah.
I could like kick off, like I could start a kids school program. I think there's so much of a need right now for
Yeah.
different types of schooling, like teaching kids etiquette, teaching kids leadership, public speaking. If I had the time, I would build it. So what I do is I do have like on my to-do list. We used to use this program called Todoist for project management. Now we all moved to
Yep.
Asana, which I really love.
Heard of that?
But I have like a personal section, and it's like called ideas, and I just like write it. I just write it down when it's like outside, really out there. But a lot of times when it's like business ideas, a lot of times I just test it out with clients. I say like, oh, we also offer this, we do offer this if you're going to
Yeah.
come. And so I'm also a really big fan of the Kevin Costner movie Field of Dreams, that says
Oh yeah.
if you build it, they will come. I believe the opposite. If they come, you will make it, is like,
Okay.
has always been a philosophy. So I always like kind of pitch the idea softly to clients and say, we do this, just to see if, because as long as I know we could do this, right?
Yeah.
And then if there's demand, I build it.
Yeah, so
Versus
you
a
kind
lot
of build it for you build it second after you see there's a demand, and
of demand,
yeah,
right?
I watched the Richard Branson on Master Class or whatever it was, and he talked about, he started an airline, he started a magazine, all these things he started out of frustration of another process, right? He was standing in line, it took forever, bag, had to pay money for his bag, all this stuff. And he's like, you know what, I'll fix this. I'm just going to start my own airline. So it's kind of what I'm
Yeah.
hearing from you is that somebody needs it, somebody desires it, and then you don't get stuck by the old paralysis by analysis is what I'm hearing.
No, I don't. In fact, I have the
Yeah, I
problem
love that.
like running with too many ideas. And if I had the time, because I know SEO really well, I know blog writing skills, I know how to promote a social media, I could easily get that up and running. But right now, I have enough on my plate doing that for my existing clients. So
Yeah.
I feel like not only do I have select advisors, but I have like, 20 at a time clients that we're promoting, helping them market. So it's more
Yeah.
than enough
It's a
to
lot.
handle. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And our
So
clients are really like, they're different than financial advisors because they're a lot hands-on, and it's almost like I'm part of their team, basically.
yeah, yeah, that's awesome. So when you hear that, though, I talked about paralysis by analysis. Are you seeing that out in the marketplace? And what advice would you have for that man or woman listening right now? How to overcome that? Because I've seen it,
Yeah.
and it's hard to just tell somebody, "Hey, don't worry about it, man. Just go do what the rest of us do, and just go build it as you go." And they don't work that way. So how do you help them with that?
Well, that happens all the time, with the
Yeah.
paralysis analysis by over analysis. In fact, I have a test on my website that I actually created literally to help people like make a decision
Mm,
really quickly, which I could send you. Um, but I think it all boils down to that word that we used, which is risk, right? A firm, let's say, has been in business for 30, 40, 50 years. They've built their client base and they did it by word of mouth,
yep.
building this great reputation. Now, all of a sudden, here comes Amy and telling them to, like, let's start posting on social media. And they're like, well, we haven't needed this before. And now we could potentially, this is the part that they're worried about, we could potentially risk our reputation.
Yep.
And yeah, I agree. Your reputation is all you have to go for it. So believe it or not, I've stopped um, basically pushing so hard. That's another thing you learn as you grow more mature. I've stopped pushing it, and I just do it for my social media. I go crazy with social media.
Yeah.
I test on my account so I could show them, like, look, I did this. I shared my full name. I shared my vulnerabilities, and it works. Now
Yeah.
you could choose if you want to do that too. Kind of like parenting, like you could keep your room clean and let them make their room a mess and see which one they choose they like more.
Right.
Because I feel like you can talk till you're blue in the face, telling people to do social media, and then if it really doesn't work because so much of it is out of your control, then you're left with an embarrassment. So I just take them to the water and I let them drink if they want it. I'll build
Yeah.
out their platform. I'll make it look as ready to go. I'll write them their message. The firms and the clients that do really well are the ones that are like, you're the expert, Amy. You just go wild, go do what you want, just run it by compliance. And those are the ones that get the traction, get the views, get the followings, and they also understand it's a long-term game, right?
Yeah.
Just like I wouldn't ask a financial advisor what's been your performance over the past year. Marketing is the same. You're building equity, you're building something that will pay dividends for years, is the way I look at marketing.
Yeah, and I think so many people too, they want to see that immediate thing. Well, Brett, I've been doing this posting thing for like 2 months. I'm like, dude, congrats. I've been doing this
Yeah.
podcast for 6.5 years. Like, it doesn't happen overnight. It's got to be
Oh yeah.
consistent. You got to show up. You got to do the work. And it is what it is. And you fail along the way, you succeed along the way, but you got to take action. You got to do it. And so this morning I was with, I don't know, 45 or 50 high school kids, and it was fun because I get to speak to them, and you bring out this energy that they have at 17, 18 years old, and they ask questions that makes you dust off the old folders and files of things you did when you were in your 20s, and now here I am in my mid 40s, and so it was a good use of time this morning. But it made me think about a question I want to ask for you today: is advice for yourself. That was something they asked me a lot of. What advice would you give yourself of the 17, 18-year-old or the 22-year-old Brett? What advice would there be? And I kind of came up with my three things, but the first one was just relax, dude. It's going to be okay. Right.
Yeah.
And then I gave him three other things. But what advice would Amy have for that, 20, 25-year-old Amy that may be needing some advice at this moment?
Yeah. Well, one of the things when I was, starting out as a financial advisor, and I see this happening with a lot of the younger advisors too, is this like, imposter syndrome. Like, do I belong here? Is this 60-year-old guy going to be giving me his money?
Right.
I think that's a very common thing that people who are young in their, I I still like I can't believe I'm even saying like that. I feel like not that old,
Right.
but I feel it's weird like talking to your younger self. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we don't if you don't have the gray hair, if you don't have the experience, you're going to feel kind of like you're missing something. And one of the things I did was I was not finance, as I mentioned, was not my expertise. Like
Yeah.
I could talk all day long about who just sold their business. You asked me how what the Fed did that day, or interest rates, or the FX markets, and I would freeze. That was my Achilles heel, one of them, that I felt like, oh, like I would dread it. And I think one of the things I would tell myself, looking back, is work on those technical skills that you feel you're low on, because the younger you are, the better you better be in those areas to make up for that lack of experience.
Yeah.
A 60-year-old guy would take a guy in his 20s really seriously if he was talking with confidence about the markets, even if he wasn't there during all the historical, crises and, happenings in the markets. The other thing is I try too hard, and I think I wrote about this too in some of my posts. I try too hard to fit in, to be like, do the small talk, play golf. And I felt like those were like, I needed to do those, but you don't need to do those,
No.
right? Like try to outshine in other places, um, in order to really succeed. And yeah, I think the other thing I would have done is started even building my business even sooner. That would be another thing, is like if you feel you're good at selling and marketing yourself and personal branding, go work for yourself, because otherwise you're just really, kind of making someone else successful. Like they
Yeah.
say, rather work 85 hours than work 40 hours for someone else.
Yeah.
So yeah, but only if you know down in your core that you're great at selling and marketing yourself, because those
Yeah.
are the two things you really need in order to be a good business owner.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. So another one of the questions today and they were very clear. They said, this has nothing to do with your personal life. What are you most proud of? But professionally, they said, what are you most proud of? And I talked about our firm and the culture and all that stuff. But then it also hit me too. I'm like, I've never worked for somebody. I've never had a quote unquote job. I started right out of college, and I get this diploma and I go work 100% commission. And thank God my fiance, now wife at the time, and wife now, but fiance at the time, believed in me, supported me. My parents they weren't like, we did what? We paid for your college and now you're going to go work 100% commission, you fool, right? Like that wasn't there, but I've never got a paycheck. I've had to earn every dollar that I've made, and I'm proud of that. But I think it does take that unique person, because I've also had people that now in our 40s are like, I wish I would have done something like that when I was in my 20s. But, now they're like, I got a house, I got 2 or 3 kids. It's hard to go do that, right?
Right.
But I think sooner or later, they've got to take that step and be willing to fail. And I think once that passion and that desire, like when we started Visionary Wealth Advisors, when I left my previous firm, we had 3 kids. My wife was pregnant with our 4th. We had just built a home, but I wanted it, right? I was hungry and I wanted to go out and build this thing, and we were able to do it and we pulled it off. But I think sometimes you just got to believe and you just got to go take action. Thoughts on that?
Yes. Absolutely. I mean, that goes back again to that's why I said if you're good at, but you probably knew one thing, that you're good at building a story, building a thing, building
Yeah.
a vision. That's probably why you're probably successful at it. Same with me. I knew I broke every stereotype getting the job at Citigroup in investment banking.
Yeah.
Built one block in me knowing, building my confidence. Then at Goldman, then I knew my career was showing me I'm good at building things, right? So I think that's one of the things I'm really proud of, is that I've been able to break all stereotypes, coming to the US as an immigrant and getting a job that only Harvard and Yale kids were getting. That job at Citigroup I had in investment banking. I was the only one that I went to undergrad at Stony Brook, which is like a name, you probably may have not ever heard of it. That was my
Mm-mm.
undergrad. Every other kid was like Ivy League. So like
Right.
that was stereotype break because I didn't speak English until I was 12 years old. So
Wow.
like to get that far and then to literally pulled a band-aid out of PIMCO and I was getting a really nice paycheck there. And even then I also got a few other job offers and they were double that even, but I still gave those up to start Select Advisors. That's what I'm really proud of is like what I've built. And I think it's really important to also be proud of something you've built 100% on your own.
Yeah.
No one funded me. It's 100% self-funded. I did go to some investors at the beginning and they were like, this isn't going to work. And, now it's too late because I feel
Right.
like I've built it and it's pretty
Now
expensive
they
now
want
to
to
do.
invest in it.
Yeah, exactly. So, all of that just builds my confidence and I know what I've been doing has been right along the
Yeah.
way.
So what would I find if I were to follow you around and follow you with a camera? So this would be not to be creepy, right? But I follow you around to see your habits, right?
Yeah.
And so what would I see kind of the no miss items in Amy's life, day in and day out, no miss items?
No missed items. Yeah. So, like I said, I'm really adamant about my running.
Yep.
So that's my sanity. One of my sanities. I run even when there's like a fire here in California. Like nothing stops me from that. That's my sanctuary. Um, a lot of time thinking about work and doing work, and then it's kids. I'm a single mom, so I handle my own kids on my own. So it's work, run, and then the kids, and then my time alone, I really am into like music. So I'm all about like going to concerts and music
Oh,
festivals
very
and just
cool.
like that's like my like work hard, play hard,
Yeah.
approach. Because I feel like that's like the only thing that like really reignites my energy. I also see a lot of creativity in those places. I see a lot of cool like graffiti art and like the type of sponsorships of like brands with music and like I like to bring some elements of that into the financial world.
Yep.
Like how do you co-brand with a large name or things like that, so that inspires me too.
I like it. Bucket list items. You a bucket list person?
I am, yeah. Although I
Awesome.
feel like I actually wanted to write somewhere that I feel like I've pretty much lived most of my bucket list items because I feel like building Select Advisors is like one of the biggest things. Bucket list is supposed to be something that's like kind of almost like impossible to get
Yeah.
to, and I think I have. But I do have one bucket list, which is to stay at the Mandarin Oriental in Lake Como. That's like it's like
That'd be
sitting there
cool.
ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
I
one,
heard
that place is
somebody call it an F it list. They're just like F it, I'm going to do that, right? It's not a bucket
yeah.
list to your point because
You're
they're just like
right.
I'm just going to do it, right? And
This is
so I've
good,
thought
right.
about that. I'm like I like that. I like that way of saying because you're right. Bucket list seems like this is a pipe dream. This will never happen. But I think if
Yeah,
we have clarity around where we want to go and create time in our calendars, we can make those things happen. So just say the F it
absolutely.
list. So you have your outside CMO. You help with branding. We talked about that. Referralytics. Tell us a little bit about that. Brag about your company, Select Advisors Institute.
Yeah. So as we said, we basically are one-stop shop for financial firms and teams to do all their marketing. The only three things we don't do is advertising. I'm not a big fan of paid marketing,
Yep.
Google ads, things like that. I've never spent on advertising, and I don't want clients to feel like they need to. Unless you're willing to compete with the firms like Fisher Investments that have a three
Right.
hundred thousand dollar a week budget, right? Um, you don't need to do that. You could do organic marketing. So I'm all about, so we don't do advertising. We don't do any printing. And then we also don't do any, like, we're not event planners, but everything else we're doing within Select Advisors from all the way from like, I've renamed at least a dozen firms.
Oh wow.
And then I've basically rebranded and built out entire marketing material and collateral for about 1,000 RIA firms and teams. So helping them with branding, coming up with unique ways of saying who they are.
Yeah.
And then from the day to day, posting on social media, writing your blogs, website maintenance, website coding, all of that.
I
And
like
then
it. I like it.
referral, like And yeah, referralytics is just like an ancillary part of what we do. It's for firms who have a really nice Rolodex of clients, but it really hasn't come about who those people know. We actually research and do the analytics on those people so that that way, instead of the small talk that you have during your quarterly reviews, you could actually say, hey, I noticed you're on this board and I noticed someone else went to Stony Brook. Would you mind referring me to that person? So
Got it.
you're making it easier and basically saying, I already know your person. Can you
I
just
already
like
know you
make,
know them.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's the step ahead of the step, right?
Yeah.
Last couple questions here for you, Amy. So, how about in our business, and again, whether I think a lot of businesses you're in sales, right? I mean, even doctors, you got to sell why your practice is better than the next, right? And so, how do you? What advice do you have for people that don't enjoy networking and they don't enjoy, going to the cocktail party and shaking hands? Like for me, I know I don't enjoy that stuff, and so. But what advice do you have for people like me or like others that may not enjoy it, but we know we still got to go do it sometimes?
We're both doing it right now because I don't enjoy networking either. I don't enjoy galas at all. Like that's not how I've
Yeah.
built any of my business, and you don't
Same.
either. So yeah. So believe it or not, majority of successful business owners are introvert or I guess social introverts, right? We don't get energy from going to those. In fact, those don't work typically. Like going to a
Yeah.
gala, like spending the whole night and spending all this money and meeting one person. I like to do what you're doing, which is broad marketing, like lots of different people, whether it's using social media. I do a lot of email blasts, to get email lists, get buy email distribution lists, whether or have someone like our firm research those names for you, get buy CEO lists, buy RIA lists, and start dripping on them. And that's for me the most efficient way. I also have a lot of people on my social media team who are adding, helping me organize my social media list. You could, you really, if you don't enjoy the broad, or the networking, that's it's actually a good thing. But you should start embracing these other ways, more digital. Basically, digital should be your friend.
Yeah. And are you finding that that's the way a lot of people are getting business these days?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Website leads coming through. People look, you look at some of the firms out there with millions of followers, they are writing blogs, writing books. They're not out there networking. They're just people
Yeah.
come to them at a
Yep.
certain point.
Yep. Yeah, I would say it's like the train that the magnets either connect or they don't connect, right? They repel each other. And I think if you have good values, you get good people, and you're doing good work, the referrals come in. I know when I was in my 20s, it was like begging people for referrals. I'm like, oh, gives me anxiety even thinking about that. But yeah, I just think that's good. It's good to hear and confirm that it's not around networking events, and it's not the way to build it, because I 100% agree. So kind of last
And
question for you. Go
I
ahead.
was just going to add one more thing. Yeah, so it's not either networking or nothing, right? And I feel like one of the best quotes I heard recently was, doing a good job is not a marketing strategy. Like that's not, you can't
Correct.
just rely on that. So you have to have something that's actively being done. And you don't need to go networking to galas, but at least do something which is more digital.
Yep. Yep. I agree. So how many of the fears you've put in your mind over your career? It's one of my favorite questions to ask. So how many of the fears you've put in your mind over your career have actually blown up to the magnitude you put them in your mind to be?
Zero. You're right. I
Yeah.
mean, the bag, I still have the bag lady syndrome worry, that you're gonna like end up being homeless.
Right.
Uh, and it's been a good thing, right? The big fear is that anxiety. But I mean, when you hear the stats of like, well, I can't, you probably know this better than I do, that like 60% of the US is living paycheck to paycheck,
Yeah.
and
Crazy.
all where they don't have more than like $100,000 in retirement. You and I could start being like, we're like, what's wrong? Like, why are we thinking this way? Well, what are they thinking that I'm not thinking? So I think we're a little bit too worried about things, the worst case scenario.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So I said last question, but I lied. This is the last question. You can see here this sticker if you're watching, future greater than your past. So our firm's mission is to help people achieve a future greater than their past. And again, doesn't mean people have a bad past, but I think everybody wants a better future. So when you hear that, kind of what's that feeling it gives you to help you achieve a future greater than your past?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm right now. Select Advisors are one of the best places it could possibly be. We have an amazing team, in-house, outsourced, that I've also sourced and found
Yeah,
some of the best talent I could think of. And we basically have our recipe down, how we write, what we think. So that's what I'm excited about. Is like, now it's no longer like each time we're like, oh my gosh, where do we start here? It's every single time we come to a client with even more and more resources and capabilities and tools. And that's what makes me really excited. It's like, it's like almost like going to a college that's going to basically be paying for itself
yeah,
down the line for any client that joins us. So that's what I'm really excited about. It's like knowing that that's something that they're that I'm able to give to my clients.
awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Amy, where can our listeners find more of you?
On our website, select-advisors.com, plural, or go to amyslinkedin.com. And that is
amyslinkedin.com. Man, that's
my
the nice and
LinkedIn.
easy one right there. You got lucky
Yeah.
on that one, huh?
Brett, you should get that. Go to GoDaddy and see if Brett's LinkedIn.com is
Oh,
available.
nice. I like it. I'll have to check.
Oh,
There's we could have had this whole podcast just be that. You say that, we cut it, and we're done. Just
or
go to GoDaddy and find it.
brettspodcast.com. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
I like
So
it. I love it. Awesome. Well, we will put all this in the show notes and send people your way, Amy. It's been awesome having you, and appreciate your time on the Circuit of Success.
thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.